Welcome everyone to another observability lab. It's time again to check out what's new on dashboards. And today I brought two guests, Thomas and Alex. Hi guys, how are you doing?
Hey, good. Hope you too.
Yeah, very good. Hey, it's been a while since we did an update on dashboards, but it's great because I know a lot of things happened. Thomas, what actually has happened? What have you prepared for us today?
We today are going to look at three pieces. The first one is how can you get started faster, so without even creating something from the get-go. The second will then be about how to explore data and discover data quicker and more leaner. And the last but not least, once you have everything on a dashboard in a static way, how can you make it more dynamic with segments and variables? So how can you filter and interact better with the data?
Awesome, sounds cool. And we'll see some live demos from both of you, so I'm very much looking forward to it.
And because you said it has been a while, just one anecdote. Actually, we did way more since the last time than we can even demo in that short time. And that's, by the way, a hint we should probably come here more often.
Exactly. Cool.
Let's look at the first part, which is how can you start faster and get insights faster? And here I want to focus on three things and highlight three things mainly. One is how you can now use a new concept, which we more or less reintroduced. If for the existing customer, you probably have heard or seen this as presets in the Dashboards Classic version. Now we call it ready-made dashboards for the new Dashboards app. And it's in essence the same concept. Dynatrace now packages with apps dashboards that you can use from the get-go, but I will go down to into this in a second. The second part is the nitty-gritty small things that we changed around how you can add something to the dashboard, the empty state, etc. And last but not least, once you have something there already, how can you tailor it faster? So a huge enhancement on the visualization settings side that we did that I will demo. Cool. But yeah, let's get to it. Let's actually demo stuff and not just show slides.
Exactly. So Thomas, I'll switch over to you.
Yes.
There you go.
Awesome. Here we start on a dashboard that I already prepared for later, but let's start with the first part, which is ready-made dashboards. And the question, is how can you, now that I've already said it's a dashboard that is shipped with apps, so Dynatrace internal staff can now embed their domain knowledge into dashboards that are then delivered with the app. A good example, I think that everybody knows, is Kubernetes, which then, for instance, can ship some Kubernetes dashboards. But how can you actually access them? It's fairly easy. Either use the all dashboards list, or we also now provide a quick link, which will directly bring you to a list of dashboards shipped by these apps, as I mentioned. Here, for instance, Kubernetes. You can, of course, also use the search to filter it down. And we see that there is 5 dashboards that come out of the box with dashboards when you start fresh. So in essence, what we did with this is instead of seeing something like that when you are on a new tenant, now you see something like that, which is already a huge amount of dashboards that you can choose from, and then you can inspire. And there's 2 things you can do with them. Either if you're a Kubernetes administrator, for instance, you can already get fundamental metrics up on a dashboard, and you can then tailor them. Let's actually look at the cluster one. And then you can start modifying things. And you will probably end up with something like this, for instance, where I added links here, for instance, or I made the numbers bigger and stuff like that. So you see, it's all about getting faster. But that's not the only way that you can actually access them. Another way would be through the hub, for instance, which would look something like this when you access it first. And where you get the curated list, but when you click on all, you now also get filter options, and not just for dashboards, as you see, but also notebooks or workflow actions. Let's actually filter that down, and that will then bring us to all the apps that actually right now provide you with ready-made dashboards. Then you can also go to the details of this app and see at the bottom included with this app, and then you can go full circle and go all the way back to a dashboard that has been provided by the Kubernetes app, for instance.
Thank you, Thomas, for this. That was already pretty cool. What else?
Yeah, you can also access it through the app itself. So there's always 3 ways of doing things. And let's actually now go to the Kubernetes app. And instead of using that, going from here. So also from here, you can see that you immediately get recommended dashboards that come with the app itself. You could also open it from here. But let's stay with the dashboard tab and go back to the one that I already prepared. And let's go with the next topic, which is how can you now actually tailor this and make it your own? And it's quite simple. If we go back to the ready-made dashboards, then it's as simple as opening any of these and then just duplicating. So they work exactly the same way as any other dashboard. They're just read-only, and you can then duplicate them and, yeah, in essence, add to it.
Cool.
Let's stay, however, with the one that I already duplicated and, in essence, prepared. But what if you now, for instance, want to add to it? Then also there we did some improvements, I would say, which get even more obvious if you create a new one, which is, and I now do it with the shortcut, our new menu, which we simplified exactly for that case where you want to add. And we now have a flat list, more or less, because before it was a bit confusing with multiple things. So it's simpler, we simplified. And here you get all the data types that later on Alex will tell you more about, as well as variables, and then a lot of snippets that aid your way of starting. For instance, instead of starting with data, which you would do on top, like starting with metrics, you can now also easily start with, for instance, based on the visualization with snippets. Should make that whole experience of adding to it faster and leaner. And that actually gets me also to the third part that I mentioned before, which is what about the tailoring part? And here you can see, and that's events, that's why it's dots, but we could actually change that. But what did we do here? We first off grouped similar or related settings better and more nicely together with expandable surfaces. You can also see that we added icons, so it's easy to find them again and easy to skim them. We also added states for some of these settings. For instance, here you immediately see that data mapping time frame, which, because it's a metric, the time series is automatically mapped to the x-axis, which kind of makes sense. You also seen that probably that we now have also here the state, for instance, for colors, which color palette is chosen. And one thing that's even more obvious from the beginning is we also revamped the whole visualization picker experience. So we now indicate which are new while we're adding new ones already continuously. And you also maybe have noticed this one, which now stays at the same, because obviously it's a time series, so the best one that you can choose is line. But if you, for instance, had chosen logs, we would actually jump to a table. But whenever you switch, you automatically disable it. So you are in full control.
Yeah, so that means if I also change the query and if I have a different result, the auto select would then really select the best choice for me.
Exactly, because it's all about instant insights, and we really trying continuously to remove all these unneeded clicks so that you actually get to a visualization, which is what you want at the end of the day. And just to highlight a few, because there's too many to mention them all, we did not just redesign and regroup things, but we actually added 35 plus, if I remember correctly, from Michele's post. And by the way, kudos to Michele and team who did all this, our database PM. But we added lots of news options as well. If we stay with Legend and Tooltip as a good example, you can now see you have lots of controls of how to actually control what's in here. Is it trimmed at the end or at the beginning or the middle when it's too long? Which variant of tooltips on the data do you want? Is it shared or single, which means do you see all of them as here in the case of, but that's even automatic as well. So we actually detect such things and then choose the best automatically, or coloring options where we now have all the same all through our charts. If we think that's now a bad example, because no, it actually works, where you can now consistently recolor parts of your visualization. Or if we go to table, a really fancy one or a nice one and powerful one that I showed on the dashboard before, if we go up here, is you can actually now define the column type. So whatever you have in there, you can then say this is actually a number, a date, a sparkline, a meter bar, and this way you can easily choose the best fitting type of more or less than automatically. Or do with Markdown, for instance, links, as you can see. And this
that's pretty cool.
Dynamic data links.
Yeah.
Yeah, And that's the visualization and tailoring part. There's way more. Check it out. Give us your feedback. So you've now, in essence, seen how you can get started faster with ready-made dashboards. You've seen that also the whole edition experience should be leaner and faster now. And the same holds true for settings where when it comes to customizing your visualizations so that they truly shine. And Alex will now go into the second part, which is what if you don't have data? How can you actually discover and explore data faster?
Cool. Thank you so much for that part, though, Thomas. Alex, do you want me to first go over to the slides?
Yes, please.
Awesome. Let's do this.
Yes. Because so far last month we've been working really hard on adding many new features and improvements here, going from the support of more data types, such as business events, and some others. We've improved the capabilities for the Explorer styles, including filtering and other options. And we have yet another option for creating these styles and exploring data based on natural language that we'll see in a bit. But let's jump again to the demo part, and I show you some of these improvements.
Perfect. Switching to your screen now. Let's go.
So here we'll go back to the Kubernetes use case, and let's monitor and explore some data here for our cluster. So the first option we have is actually to go back to the Kubernetes app. And from there, I, for example, select this actual Kubernetes cluster, switch to the utilization panel, and for this demo, I'll select the traffic metrics. And with this option, we can directly pin to dashboard, choose the one I was working on. And with that, boom, we directly have a brand new tile that we can start using for monitoring our metrics. In this case, transmitted data and received data.
Yeah, I've seen this myself, and it's really useful because you sometimes just want some data from these out-of-the-box apps, and you want to have it on your own dashboard. And now with a single click, without having to learn and understand DQL, you made this super simple. That's really cool. Thank you.
Exactly. But then how can we replicate this from scratch? We still have several options. First one could be to open again our global search and start looking for the metrics you want to include in your dashboard. So in this case, transmitted data once more. And here, similarly, you can open it directly in a dashboard. Choose yours. And you have the metric in a new tile that you can start editing once again. But I don't want to focus in this one because I want to jump to the third option, which is actually the enhanced Explorer interface that we have from before. That as Thomas said, in our new menu, we have a set of new options, but I'll select in this case metrics because I want to replicate the tile I have above. And apart from the new empty tile we have, on the right side, we have a panel composed especially by this building block where I can start browsing my metric once again. And then once I have it, I get a set of new commands such as aggregations, filtering, split by, and some others that I can use to configure and tailor my tile to start exploring data. For this example, I'll actually add some split by for this cluster, and let's run it to see what we have in there. Make it a bit bigger. And now we can see the same metric, but now split it in different dimensions. Maybe let's tailor a bit more so we have the same look and feel as the one from above. And what now we could use to have the exact same results would be to go to our new filter field component that, as you can see, gives us a set of suggestions, but it also lets you to add, edit, or remove any kind of field in there. So for this case, I'll go again to Kubernetes one. As you can see, the suggestions list gets reduced. I'll choose the ID actually. Now we get a set of controls that allows us to select how the filter should behave. And I think here the ID ends in 1018, so let's look for that, 1018. And nice, we have here the actual suggestion.
I think there was a long requested feature to make this easier with getting the filters and also the dynamic values to pick from. That's really cool.
Yeah, I think you're very, very handy.
Yeah.
And yeah, run. Let's run it again to compare the actual two results, and we see we have the same results in both sides. And now, what's also in there? We've also included an option to include not one, but an unlimited amount of metrics by using these building blocks. So if we go to this menu, we could select metric, and we can add any new metric we'd like to include in our chart. This also goes together with a set of actions per building block, like hide, duplicate, and delete. I'm actually going to remove this one, because what we want to do is to duplicate the first one to keep the same configuration that we had from before. I'm actually going to remove the limit because I want to have more data. And then I'm going to select the other metric, which is data. We can always use the categories panel on the left to narrow down my results. And here we have it. Can run it again. And now we have the same tile in both sides. Okay. One thing you might notice is that here we are showing the IDs of the cluster. Here we are showing the actual name, and it's because if we go to the drop down, we can see that this is the actual deploy that we are generating on the fly that gets executed. But in here, we are also enriching the code, so we actually get the names of these clusters.
Which I guess is what people want by default anyway. Have the names instead of the IDs. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. But this is not the last thing I want to show in this area, because we've gone the extra mile, and apart from metrics, we can have another type of building blocks, which are the expressions. And this allows you to create or perform arithmetic calculations between the metrics that you've already had before. So for example, here, I could choose K and B, and like this, we can calculate like the ratio between the two apps, these two metrics, and get it in the percentage mode. So if I run it again, we have this third series. I can focus on it. Then, as you can see, it has a different unit and is the final result of the calculation between the two first metrics. This could be very beneficial for the use case, for example, when you have you have your metric error count that you want to compare it to the service request or similar scenarios. Okay.
Very powerful, yeah, and it makes it so flexible, because a lot of people have been asking, can I do simple arithmetic calculations? And with this, you're completely open to do so. Yeah.
Yep. But then this is not only the only thing we've included or improved in the export interface. As we mentioned before, we've added support for new data types such as events and business events. We had even more to come in January, such as spans and problems. But for example, for this demo, maybe we can add another explore log tiles in order to improve the context, when troubleshooting and analyzing my Kubernetes cluster. So here, as you can see, we have a slightly different building block. For example, well, I could use the summarize to show the different amount of logs we have per status. Here, for example, we have the error, info, non-warning, different ones, and the count of each of them. But of course, I like to have those results filtered by the ones that come from my actual cluster. So again, I could add here another filter. In this case, I'm going to use this one and select the cluster again. I can run it. And we have filtered the data with the specifics for my cluster. But this is not the last thing, because for analyzing what's going on, we could even go the extra mile, and with the open with feature, we can even drill down these results to our brand new logs app and dig deeper in there and go farther with our analysis.
Cool. That means the interactivity, or let's say the path from a dashboard to then the detailed specific app to dive deeper is also there. So from a tile here that shows logs that are relevant for me, I can then go into the logs app. So with the intent, we can open up the relevant app, and I would assume this is showing you the logs here. I assume this would also make sense for, like, say, trace-based data or any other type of data, and then going into that specific app in Dynatrace. Yeah, that's awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. And last but not least, we have yet another option, which is our Davis CoPilot, which lets you use natural language to, again, retrieve data and explore it in a very fast and powerful way. I'm not going to focus that much on this one, but we have more info in our latest blog post that Thomas shared recently. And I invite you to go there and check out the latest also on these regards.
Awesome.
And with that, we've seen how to explore data in dashboards, but we've gone even further, and I think that now Thomas can show you how to make things even more dynamic.
Perfect. Thomas, back to the slides, I would assume?
Yeah, just for a sec to set the stage.
Yeah, well, perfect. There we go.
So now that we have our visualizations on the dashboard, I think the next logical step oftentimes is to make it dynamic. As Alex already showed with the dashboard in the demo, you oftentimes want to change a cluster potentially because you work in another team, you're responsible for another cluster, and this is where filters in essence come in. And there is, I would argue, now two things that probably make us the most advanced now, that are called segments and called variables. Variables we already had, and I think already showed here, but something that we very recently introduced is segments, which for the existing customers probably was known as management zones in the past. And the filtering aspect is now more or less recreated with what's now called segments. And that's, I kind of hinted it before, there's in essence two complementing concepts, one being global, the other one being local. So when you create segments on a global level, that's something you can reuse even beyond and across, like beyond the dashboarding app and across the Dynatrace apps in essence. So staying on a global level. And when you want to have full control, how filters are applied in your query, then you would go with variables, which is then tied to this document/dashboard. And you can then up to the very lowest level decide how is it and or connected, etc., etc. But let's look at this in the product.
Let me switch over to your screen in a second.
Yes.
Here we go. Back to you, Thomas.
Awesome. Let's quickly start with segments, but that I will totally leave up to Roman to pitch and to make the yeah. And here we see that we now have a new segments app, and I will just go there for a second to show it. And this is where you would define them on a global level. We see Roman already defined some segments on this cluster or in this environment. yeah, you would hit plus, etc., etc. But I want to today, because we are dashboards, focus on how you would consume them. So I'm going back to the dashboard, and we now in most, if not all, apps who are supporting segments, you will notice at some place this new control, the cube, and here you will then actually see that you can now filter by segment, which, for instance, again, could be the cluster, which we, however, have, and that's the interesting part. And if we now say, okay, we actually just want to filter on this, then we could actually also filter the dashboard by this data regard. And you see it's only that one that I chosen that now is available. So it actually also filters all our variables. So this is how it, in essence, works together. And that means for common things like Kubernetes clusters, which you probably have on multiple dashboards, for team ownership, for many more, like the team name, for instance. Whenever you have something that's global in your environment, then you probably would first always go to segment, define it. But, and that's not a segue to variables, whenever you have a, let's say, special case, or when you, as I said, want to have full control how it applies, then you would probably go with a variable. And variables, and this is now where I jump right in. We improved quite a bit since the last time we've seen each other, Andreas. For instance, how you find them. You now either have this three dot menu right next to any that you defined, and you then can go to all variables. Or since we've seen each other, we now have also introduced settings on dashboards, and you will also find these variables in here. And both actually lead you to the same place. And here you can already see another thing that we added, which is visibility. If you paid attention to the eye, so some can be visible while others can be hidden in case you really use them as variables and you, for instance, fetch data in the back and then, retrieve something that does not necessarily need to be a filter as a dropdown. We also added another interesting thing, which is dependent variables, as you can see here. Which I think is very powerful because you can hide them. You can then even use the state in here in this other hidden variable.
So that means the use case would be like in your case, you are providing a drop down for the name of the Kubernetes cluster, which for me as a human makes much more sense. But then in a hidden variable, you're actually fetching the cluster ID, which makes queries that need the cluster ID more efficient instead of having to just use the name all the time. So this is super powerful.
Exactly. Even though for this particular case, we have, and I don't want to spoil too much, we have also something on stock in the future. But you could use that exactly for such a use case and many more. For instance, the environment, you could also use a code variable under the hood to fetch even remote data in that case.
Cool.
But let's actually go to a new, and let's also highlight the fact that since the last time we've seen each other, it was actually a model that you went into in order to define and manipulate variables. So we completely redesigned the way you interact with them, and we're now more and more doubling down on this side panel detail view concept that we now have throughout. Because now you see it's actually more like a tile, and I can actually switch from a variable in a second to a tile and back and forth. So, and that's, I think, is particularly important when you use that variable in tiles, because then you don't need to go out and in and all these hassles. And that's how we remove this. That's one part. And then if we look at, and let's stick with the new one, we also redesigned the way you define them. Even though the controls are mainly the same, we've added some. For instance, first and foremost, we have now grouped related things as with settings in surfaces. We also added another type even, text, so that you get input. That's another addition that we did. But let's stay with query, for instance. And then I think the next biggest thing we did is we added display settings. And one I already spoiled, which is you can now decide whether or not to show them on a dashboard. And you can also define, in essence, if you now run this so that it actually populates, once you ran it, you can now also define what should be the default value that your user that consumes the dashboard should see initially.
Really cool, very powerful. I've seen this used already by many folks. Very happy to see also, I mean, we know Mike Ferguson is one of our colleagues who has been creating a lot of great dashboards. And I've seen some of these tips and tricks here, like the hidden thing and the one variable referencing the other from him. So, but it's really nice that you're highlighting this for all of our community to use.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and this is more or less it about variables. So this should now make it quite easy to make your data dynamic whenever you have visualized it.
So to recap from my side, segments is the new way to provide global filters on any type of data in Grail. Folks, I know a lot of you are using management zones right now, and as you correctly said, Thomas, right, we are on the Grail side moving towards segments, providing you a perfect way to define different filters that you can then use in the dashboard app, in the Kubernetes app, in all of the apps that are based on Grail data. You either already see or you will see the segments feature. And once you select the segment, I guess the segment is the first filter that we really apply on the dashboard, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yes, it's a pre-filter as we call it technically. So yes, fully true. And I think one noteworthy thing which might be underappreciated when you compare it to management zones, and that's where I think segments really shine, is that they actually also more or less include variables. So you will find this as very similar, same concept in segments in the definition, because now I can actually choose. There could be multiple Grail statements behind this. What do I wanna use as a consumer? Which means I don't need to create, for instance, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 management zone rules. I just create one segment rule and then make parts that are dynamic, truly dynamic with a variable. And then you again get drop downs in here, and the consumer decides how this rule behind is actually transformed into that pre-filter.
Perfect. Nice, well thought through. And as you said, kudos go to many teams within Dynatrace. You mentioned Roman earlier by name. He definitely, and his team has focused on the segments, and we'll definitely get him on a video as well. Thomas, Alex, this was a lot of cool demos of things that you guys brought to our community. Anything else or any other things that we are working on? What else is there?
Yes, I mean, I totally forgot one that I really like the most is that we finally got this, as you can see, pen and zoom. So as I said, there's so many more things that we actually did. So that's again a call to action. Try it out and find all that nuggets. Also the ones that I haven't yet shown. There's definitely more. But what's new? Yeah, can you go to the slides and then I'm gonna tell you.
Yeah, perfect.
So what's next? We are still and obviously still working for all the existing customers on improving a dashboard upgrade mechanism that we put in place a while ago, so that you can just click upgrade and most of the stuff is moved automatically. We are also, and I hinted at before, are working on new visualizations even, such as gauge, meter bar, maps, heat maps. There's definitely more to come in the next year. Alex already told you about discovering and exploring data. We are not done there, and we want to go steps and steps further with this. So this is also a constant investment that we do with how you get down to the data, be it more flexibility in terms of how you browse it, or be it more data types. Documents management, I think we have a solid base there at the moment, and there we definitely want to advance as well with ready-made dashboards, better separating these two concepts so that you can either focus on all yours, the shared ones, or ready-mades better, and also that you get recommendations. For instance, tagging we're going to reintroduce next year for sure, so that you can also add metadata to your documents, be it dashboards or notebooks, and for that matter. The whole getting started faster that I started with today, we want to advance again, because now we introduced on a dashboard level more or less you could call it templates if you go outside of the industry. And we also want to do the same for tiles and sections, so one level below. Then a huge point or part where we'll invest more next year is the whole journey around Davis. You can expect things to be leaner and cleaner and even more advanced there next year. Don't want to spoil too much. And last but not least, when you have all this at your dashboard, everything applied, then how can you better share your results internally and externally of Dynatrace?
Cool. Guys, again, bringing us back to the big screen now. Thank you so much for doing this. Also, thanks for the dashboard. I saw the name of the dashboard that you used had something with Observability Lab in there. So we will make sure to get this dashboard also on the Dynatrace Playground tenant. So for everyone that wants to, do the same thing what Thomas and Alex have done, just go to the Playground tenant and play around with it. Also remember, I think some of the key takeaways from me, these ready-made dashboards, they are there because they're solving a use case. However, you may have an extension to that use case. So go to those ready-made dashboards, create your own copy, modify it, and most important, I think, especially for the two of you, is we want to have feedback. So if you say, hey, there's something, I really like this, or there's something missing, here's a cool also dashboard that I always build, go to community.dynatrace.com. That's the best place to then provide feedback. Thomas, Alex, it should not take that long to the next recording. I would love to see a session with the two of you where we build maybe really a dashboard from scratch again with a specific use case where we use different types of visualizations. I know we have honeycombs now in there. I really like the markdown feature in the tables, which is extremely powerful, or in general, some of these, the spark lining, the different charting options that we have. I think it would be cool to do another just session where we say, we want to build this dashboard. Let's build this in 10 minutes. And yeah, I want to have you back and challenge you on this.
Sounds good. What about early next year? So first quarter?
Sounds good. We'll do that. Awesome.
Commitment.
With this, thanks again. And we'll say goodbye to the audience. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.